Paul, come on. Let's hear from you, Mr. Institute of Fiscal Studies. What would you like to see in next week's autumn statement?
Well, I'd like to see, first of all, some honesty about the really quite difficult position that we're in. There's been lots of discussions about tax cuts and so on. And I can understand why there have been discussions about tax cuts. Taxes are actually at their highest level ever in this country at the moment. And they've gone up more over this Parliament than over any Parliament since the Second World War. So you can see why there's a pressure to do this. So why are we in that position? Well, partly because actually spending has grown a fair bit, though we haven't seen much in the way of results in public services, it has to be said. Partly because growth has been so poor, and partly because we're spending £100 billion a year on debt interest, and that bill is set to remain quite high over the coming years. The consequence is that if you look at the budget numbers, the government says that it's going to be cutting public service spending in some areas over the next 3 or 4 years. And even doing that, you still have debt not coming down. And both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have said that they want to get debt down into the medium term. So we are in a pretty difficult situation, and that gives us some pretty difficult choices. So we could say that taxes are very high, we need to take them down a bit, and there are certainly some taxes I would like to see cut. Stamp duty, land tax is a particular example, but if you're going to cut taxes at all significantly, you have to say alongside that where you're going to find savings on the spending side. Equally, if you want to increase spending, then you're going to have to say something on the tax side. What I'd really like to see is a programme which is going to provide us with more growth over the medium run. And we kind of know how to do that, actually. We just decide not to. So planning reform would be one obvious thing to do. Tax reform of multiple kinds would certainly help. We need to invest more in education, particularly vocational and further education for those kids who don't go on to university. We need to protect the infrastructure budget. Actually, the government is planning to cut that pretty significantly.
So do you think any of those things are likely?
Well, there is some tax reform coming. I hope and expect that there'll be a change to corporation tax announced in the budget in March, which gives more incentives to invest. That was for 3 years. I hope that goes on for a couple more years. People have talked a bit about changing some aspects of the tax system, particularly, as I said, stamp duty. That would help a little bit. The government has given a bit more money to schools, but there might be more scope for that. But what I really want from both sides, actually, is some serious laying before us of these really tough problems. This high level of tax, significantly paying for very high debt interest payments and not giving us great public services, gives us some really tough choices.